Welcome back to Talking Devils podcast, brought to you by talkingdevils.co.uk, your number one independent Manchester United podcast. Damn, feels good to say that every week. I'm joined here by Wayne Barton, and also we will be joined by Lee Lawrence and Phil Marsh as well. Lee just cut off there briefly. We are here to preview Manchester United versus Brentford, Erik ten Hag's second game in the Premier League. Also, we'll be talking the latest news regarding Marcus Rashford, and also we will be chatting and obviously starting lineups and all other related Manchester United news. So do smash like the video, guys. Do subscribe on YouTube, but also on our audio platforms as well, whether that's Spotify or Google Podcasts, wherever you may find our work. But Wayne, first of all, haven't seen you since a couple of weeks ago in Manchester. How's the form, pal?
Yeah, not bad. Glad to talk football with you guys. Obviously, moonlit for you last week on the pod. So Lee and Phil had to put up with me. It was good to see you back. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm good. I was a bit unwell. Actually, I was unwell when I came back from Manchester. But yeah, I'm doing good. Spirits are good. Back to work, and look back talking about my United. That I suppose when the doctor was saying to me, your blood pressure is high, and I was like, yeah, it's probably because I'm Man United, I said the other day. But look, here we are. Here to talk United today. Hopefully they don't disappoint me too much this weekend, because I know I do get proper wound up about the team. But here we are. Lee, haven't seen you in a couple of weeks, pal. How's the form since the defeat against Brentford last weekend?
Oh, good, mate. Same old. Pretty much like the starting 11. Same old, mate. Not many things change, does there? But yeah, I'm glad to be on, guys. Glad to be speaking to you both today. Glad to see you back fit and well, Keane. Just to let you guys know, I had a little game of football myself on Sunday. Thought I could do what I could do 11 years ago, and I still can't feel my legs and my back now. So definitely won't be getting the boots out anytime soon again.
Oh, I was banking on you getting on the boots to replace Luke Shaw on the weekend, but look, I'll have to take you out my predictions this weekend.
I did the first 10 minutes, and I thought, you know what, I'm not doing so bad here. After about 15 minutes, I couldn't breathe. I was asking for me subbed off after 40. I was like, that's me done. Get me off.
Oh, stop. And also as well, I know Phil will be on the podcast soon, but I also send the best wishes to Phil as well. Obviously, recovering from his own injury, playing football as well. Hopefully Phil gets well soon and gets back on the pitch as well very soon. I suppose we dive straight into it, lads. Obviously, we returned to the pitch. We returned to Old Trafford last weekend. Obviously, the Premier League kicked off last weekend. Obviously, 2-1 defeat to Brighton. Consequently, there's been a lot of noise around the football club, obviously around transfers also, obviously about protest, stuff like that. Wayne covered a great show the other day in regards to the Glazers Out movement. Do check that out as well later on. But I'm going to dive straight into Marcus Rashford, guys, because that seems to be kind of the biggest talking point in the last couple of days. Apparently there's interest from Paris Saint-Germain. This interest is kind of revived after a couple of years ago. They were interested in him when Thomas Tuchel was their manager. Now it's revived. At this moment in time, Erik ten Hag has come out today and said that Marcus Rashford is pretty much part of Erik ten Hag's rebuild going forward. Wayne, just on the Marcus Rashford reports, obviously he's kind of had a stop-start, I suppose, 12 months post-Euro 2020. Where are you at in terms of his interest? Because obviously there's no smoke without fire, and essentially his agent and his brother have been talking to PSG, and he's obviously 1 year left in his contract, and he has been subject to, I suppose, a lot of abuse from sections of the Manchester United fan base in the last 12 months. Where are you sitting on this Marcus Rashford story at the moment, and what are your feelings about it?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, no right-minded United fan is going to get on Rashford's back. They're just not. I know, all right, season when he wasn't playing well, but they weren't getting on his back to the point where he's unpopular. They were frustrated because they want him to do well. And, that was the aim every time you saw him go on the pitch. You were willing him to do well. Yeah, don't get me wrong. There was a section of an element of the support where they would groan if he came on. You do get that sometimes with some players. But I don't think they're particularly on his back or they've turned against him at all. Everyone wants to see him do well. The goal that he scored against West Ham, the last minute winner, I think everyone, definitely me included in that, we really hoped that it'd be like a confidence boost for him, that it'd really kick him on, and maybe for a game or two it looked like it might, but then it was very much the anomaly over the season. You said 12 months that his form's been dodgy. I would probably say close to 24. He had a great run of form, and I think it was just before lockdown, where he was scoring loads of goals. He scored that free kick against Chelsea. I always talk about this because I think that was right in the middle of the run of form, or it was right at the start of it. That amazing free kick that he scored from so far out. And at the time, I wondered if, and I actually wondered this publicly, I put it on record, if that would be his Ronaldo moment. And what I thought by that, I didn't mean that he's going to follow the same kind of trajectory as Ronaldo to become one of the best players in the world. But if his form would accelerate to such a point where, that he'd be the main man in the team and, that he'd be one of the best players in the country, because he certainly has the talent for that. The thing is, people have to keep remembering this. Rashford didn't break through into the team as an unstoppable player in the reserves. He got his chance through fortune, really. There's nothing wrong with that. Lee will attest to this. That's how most young players get their chance in the first team, when a few injuries crop up and this unexpected opportunity pops up. That's what it was like for Rashford. What I'm trying to say is that he wasn't scoring goals at such a prolific rate in the youth and reserves that he was knocking down to be included in the first team. There were some injuries that came up, and once he got into the first team, his temperament was so good once he was in there that he was scoring goals for fun, and obviously he was in the first team picture from then on. So we've always wondered what his upper ceiling is, where he's going to go, how far he's going to go, what his actual level of ability is in the United team. Is he a bona fide starter for Manchester United? Is he a bona fide starter for England? All of these things I think we're still trying to work out. And obviously he's at an age in his career where they want to, everyone involved, and United are involved in this as well. Everyone wants to maximise his potential, but Marcus's representatives will be looking at it from his personal perspective to maximise this contract opportunity that's coming up for him, to try and maximise his value. And at the moment in time, if you're going to maximise his value on form, it's not going to be very good. He's not going to get an increase in, they're not going to offer him a bumper increase in his salary for sure. So the best way that his representatives can make him look appealing is to make sure that there's offers from elsewhere, interest from elsewhere, like Paris, for example. I think that's what's happened. Yeah, I think they've gone and talked to Paris. I do think his brother and representatives are going to talk to him. All of the reports seem to suggest that happened last week. I think it's a negotiating tactic to get this bumper new contract. But United have to be very, very careful in this situation, because I don't think that they can afford to be going down that road. Not because I don't think that Marcus could achieve that or go that distance. I just think at this moment in time, to commit to, let's say, 5 years on an increased salary, let's say 300 grand a week, let's say that this is the form that continues, you're investing in the last 2 years to happen for the last 3 years, which is exactly the same principle as I've been saying for Martial and for Pogba. Giving him a new contract is expecting the last 2 or 3 years to happen. So that's my concern, is that he hasn't earned it on form. I don't think it's a great idea if United get lured into the idea that he's been coveted elsewhere, because I would be tempted to call their bluff and say, show me the colour of their money, then show me what their interest is. Because at this moment, although I want Rashford to stay at United, and I think that he can improve, and I think if he gets back to his form, like he seemed to suggest that he might in pre-season, obviously competitive football is a very different animal, but as he seemed to look like he was going to do in pre-season, then he's an asset to United. At this moment in time, though, if Paris put in an offer of 70 or 80 million, I don't know. Where do you stand on that? To me, I think it's actually quite appealing transfer opportunity for us.
You kind of rounded that up really well, Wayne, with everything you said there. I totally agree with, and I'm not just saying that because you said it. It's everything I was thinking in my head was what you were saying. In my opinion, like I've mentioned so many times on this podcast, I want the lad to do well. You know what I mean? Every time he gets on the ball, I'm wanting him to look good. I'm wanting him to get back to that form what he was back, like say 2 years ago. I just get the feeling he's peaked a little. Obviously we all know the ability he's got and the natural talent what's in there, but I just get the feeling that he, a couple of seasons ago when he was carrying us, for a couple of seasons really, I think that was it at his peak. Do I see him getting back to where he was there? I don't think he will, and I think it's going to go down to who we can sign. Let's say if they're going to offer 80, 90 million for Rashford, and then we've mentioned Anthony. There's this Gapco guy now. If we can bring in players who we feel is going to improve our squad, it's a tricky one, like I say, because it's a local lad, and you don't want to see a local lad go. You want to see the local lads do well and thrive, but you've got to think of the squad now, and it's definitely something what I would consider, if I'm being honest. And I didn't think I would have said that last year, but if we can get that type of money for Marcus Rashford on the form he's on, and the form has been on for a long time, then yeah, I'd probably have a look at it, if I'm being honest.
Do you know what, as well? Like, there's the caveat of the fact that United have the option to extend the extra year with it. So if United are to get the value out of him, like, the smart decision here, like, I hate kind of advocating for this sometimes, but maybe trigger that extra year. And, you trigger that extra year and then give him this season and see if you can maximize that value. It's one of them where...
If you do that, though, you're going on his ability, aren't you? If he's an absolute stinker of a season again, there's that 80 million drop to 40, 50 million, what I mean? It's
that's the risk.
Perform. And
that's the risk United to be taken, Lee. I think that's the risk United will be taking if we did extend that option for the extra year. Stuart's here in the comments, and I don't know if you agree with this, guys. I said start the window, we'd end up with Neymar. I think with Cristiano at the club, that's not going to happen. I think Neymar's wages would be a bit too extortionate for Man United at the moment. We're a bit skint at the moment, and that's not down to ourselves. That's down to the boys who own us. But it's one of them where I want him to succeed, and I think he can be that player. And like, he has shown especially under Solskjaer, he was brilliant. Between himself and Bruno, that partnership, they connected. They were brilliant. And I remember, Wayne, you brought up that season as well. Him and Martial were like almost telepathic in terms of how they moved and how they score goals. And like, I think for me, if you look at the development of Rashford, and I'll actually bring Martial in on this as well. When we brought in Alexis Sanchez, I thought that stunted the development of the two of them because they were on pretty great form then. And look, again, we talked about the Alexis Sanchez signing here in the podcast before, how detrimental that was to their development. But that kind of 18 months really, I think, damaged Rashford because he was moved onto the right, he was played up front, he was kind of all over the place. And even now, like, you can theoretically say the left is his best position. But even now, people are still saying, sure, he can play up front. At his age now, he needs to have a position nailed down. We need to know what type of player he is. And I think this is where, like, he's still struggling with that. And now, really, the amount of different managers, the amount of different philosophies isn't helping that either. I think in terms of development and, like, individually, collectively, what parts of his game he's working on. I think having the defensive manager in Mourinho, having a semi-defensive manager in Solskjaer in terms of counter-attacking football. You had Ralph Rangnick who wanted to play gang press, and now you have Erik ten Hag, which is like his philosophy is total football. Like, if you look at like all them different types of philosophies and styles of play, Marcus Rashford it's been in them. Now that, again, I suppose if you're a top player, you can adapt to anything. Like that argument is there to be made. But I think if you look at how he can be maximized, I think some of that as well has to be on the past managers, the football club, who've mismanaged some of our younger players in the past.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And Rashford's a good example because of his fluctuating form. But you've mentioned the different philosophies of the different managers, and really you're making that argument for everyone in the squad, aren't you? That's a valid argument for every single player, and a valid argument for why we look so disjointed and why already. I'm sure you guys, in fact, I know that you work, so I've seen it in our preview pods for this season. We were all saying, all right, it was good to see them playing well in pre-season, but we've been down this path before. We've seen them play well in pre-season. It's a very, very different kettle of fish. And Paul Parker, obviously we got him on the Monday podcast, but I always thought it was being a little bit too harsh with this. He called us a lockdown team for a long time, the team that finished second.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people said that, and I thought, I didn't want to, you're getting carried away a little bit as a fan because you finished second in the league, and you think, oh, well, we're second, we're one step away from really challenging for the title. And of course, we weren't. The truth is that a lot of those players played better without the pressure of crowds there, and as soon as the crowds are there, and I'm not saying that as a slight at these players, by the way, because the pressure of playing for Manchester United is very, very different. We've seen it this week. The they're nowhere near in any kind of prediction to win the league. Really, in most people's predictions. I looked at most people's predictions, most prominent pundits' predictions for the top 4 for this season. United still aren't anywhere near them. Really, most of them are, maybe 1 or 2 had United in the top 4. So they're nowhere near really challenging for anything. And yet they're the only team that's been talked about all week. And that's because they lost the opening game. And that's on, all of these players having to deal with that kind of pressure. So I do have a little bit of sympathy. Yeah, we were getting on their back a little bit last season as well. Saying, all right, you're not good enough, they're not good enough, and blah, 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 blah. Should they bring the changes? Should they bring the young players in? And I know that's probably going to be what you guys are going to be talking about later on. All that sort of stuff. So can you imagine being a United player at this moment in time? Nobody expects you to win anything. You're still expected to turn up and win every game because that's the unique pressure of being United. That's what these players are like when they turn up on a Saturday. So, all right, it's all right pre-season where they can, the pressure's not on. But the first 10 minutes, they didn't score. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, God, here we go again. And they're a victim of their own mentality in a way. And I'm not saying that as a massive criticism because Lee will know better than either of us how unique that pressure is and how intense it is and how it can make or break a player. And you don't know until you get him in front of those 70,000 people at Old Trafford what the temperament is like. Some people can stand up to it. And I'm not saying that every player in that squad's like that. But if you have 4 or 5 who aren't, if they start panicking on the ball, and we don't have to run through all those players are, if they don't have the composure to play in a United team when patience is required and when you need to control the game, then you're going to be massively struggling. And United have got too many of those players. And again, I'm not saying that to get on the players' backs. I'm just saying it's a reality. We saw it last season. We're seeing it this season as well. Already, there's no point even... I don't feel there's any point in naming names and going after these players because we all know really who they are. It's almost unfair to keep pointing the finger because it's no massive criticism. There are only certain groups of United squads in history that have won the league. Do you know what I mean? Not every single player has been able to do it. It's a very unique environment. It's very different to anything at United in English football. And this last week has proven that from our own fans. And I do worry sometimes when I look at, and I don't want to say modern fans or fan cam fans or anything like that, but I do wonder when you look at the reaction, when you see the press reaction this week, and a lot of our own fans online have sort of turned against the players like, oh, blah, blah, the crap again. I wonder how they don't see the press reaction because Fergie would be using that as a siege mentality. Look, everyone's against us. We don't need our own kicking as well. We're down as well. But that's what it seems to have been like this week.
Yeah, but I think that's where knee-jerk reaction is. I think in this day and age now, it's very prominent. And there will always be a section of the fan base that have that knee-jerk reaction. But that's where I think the generation of again, not discriminating anybody, but the online fan, match-going fan, there's different sections of the fan base. So a match-going fan might have a knee-jerk reaction. Maybe certain section of online fans mightn't have a knee-jerk reaction. It's just one of them. But again, some people have their own personal preference in terms of who their favorite players are and who they might think is good enough. Shane has a comment here. He said Rashford should be at least given this season to see if he can regain form. There's no need for United to panic, but if he was to leave, I think he'd get back to his best elsewhere. Do you think with the fact that Rashford's had such a poor period of form, do you maybe think that in terms of from a professional point of view, that maybe a change of scenery may be actually what's needed for Rashford to kind of soul search and get back to his best?
100%, mate. We mentioned it in the podcast we did in pre-season. If you remember rightly, this was one of the topics what come up, and my personal opinion was I would loan him out if that that option come up. Like I say, we weren't sure whether he could get back to his form. We'd love him to do it, like we've just mentioned about the fan base then, and going off what Wayne's just said. At the minute, for me, it's very sour. We kick a guy while he's down, and even when he's doing well and he's going on the up, we still kick him down. And ultimately, we all want the same goal. We all want that guy to get back, no matter who it is, 1 to 11. We still want that whoever it is to, get back to form and start playing well for us. And it just seems like a lot of the time we're just happy to kick them and kick them and kick them. And I think that's what happened a little bit with Rashford. I think his confidence completely went last season. His touch went. He didn't look like he could take anyone 1-on-1. He didn't look fast. He's not. No matter how he was playing, he's still gonna have that pace to get up and down. And it didn't even look like he had the pace for me what he had the season before that. And that for me can only be a confidence thing.
Do you maybe think from an athletic standpoint, the fact he had a back injury and a shoulder injury and he had to go for surgery, do you think that like maybe athletically Lee, that maybe he doesn't have that 5-yard like burst of pace that he had previously? Like I remember years ago, Fernando Torres had a bad knee injury and he didn't have that burst of pace either years ago. Do you think that like physically that may be hindering him?
Possibly, but for me, watching him all last season, for me, his confidence was absolutely shot. And again, this is what we mentioned in the podcast in pre-season. For me, I would take him away. Take him away from the environment, take him away from basically social media, the fan base, to getting absolutely dug out every time he's on the pitch. Let him go to, I don't know, another league, let's say the French league or somewhere like that. Let him get his confidence back up and then see what he can do. And then hopefully bring him back in 12 months' time. He's got a different mentality. His confidence is back up. We might get the Rashford what we had a couple of seasons ago. I don't think keeping him now, especially if he's going to perform the way he performed against Brighton, although he did show glimpses of his old self, he still was nowhere near the player we know he can be. For me, it's a no-brainer. Get him out there on a loan, and if we're not going to sell him, and let him rebuild his confidence and hopefully get him back as a new player the season after.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially with the contract. Like, do we activate that year? And like, it's interesting alone that could maybe rejuvenate. We've seen how that rejuvenated Jesse Lingard for a 6-month period as well. And obviously, consequently, he didn't come back and play. Obviously, we'd multitude of options in the attacking midfield position, and Jesse didn't play. But we've seen how a new lease on like a new environment can benefit a player, and it'd be interesting to see. But I suppose like we've touched on Rashford, and look, thanks very much, guys, for your Shane and Stuart for your comments so far in the show. If you are watching on Facebook, don't forget to go over to YouTube and go to www.youtube.com/talkthe-devils. Do smash that like button and subscribe. We have a lot of podcasts coming up. We also have a post-match review tomorrow as well with Mark and guests tomorrow as well to do. Be sure to catch that as well, and also subscribe to our audio platforms as well. But we'll speed it up, and we will move on to another topic in terms of like Manchester United this season. Obviously, a new acquisition. We got Christian Eriksen, that he obviously played in a different role. Last weekend, kind of was in a false 9/attacking midfield. He was everywhere all over the pitch. It seemed against Brighton, Wayne. Obviously, he's coming back to Brentford so soon after signing for United. Obviously, he went to Brentford after the tragic incident at the Euros that summer, and like he got a new lease in life, and look, he seemed to be kind of getting back to his best form, and now he's going back to that same environment where he kind of, I suppose, rediscovered himself. How do you think Christian Eriksen is going to be feeling this weekend, going back to Brentford so soon after signing for United? And where do you think, where do you think would be the best place for him to play this weekend? Because he kind of struggled as a kind of a false nine, and I suppose like we touch on Ronaldo in a minute. Like I'm guessing Ronaldo probably will play from the start tomorrow. But for you, would Christian Eriksen be best used as a number 10 or as an 8? And also just touching on going back to Brentford there as well.
Yeah, no, I think he'll like going back. From everything that I've heard of the noises from the Brentford fans, I don't think they're very happy that he left and came to United. I know Natalie Sawyer, who's probably the most high-profile Brentford fan I can think of. There might be more high-profile, but we follow each other on Twitter, so I saw her reaction. She wasn't very happy about it. And I was like, well, why? Because he didn't have any, his contract was up. He'd served his 6 months. Yeah, all right. They did offer him a place in the, place to come back into football after it seemed like he was lost. But, they utilised their connections very well. They got a Danish contingent there. You know what I mean? They exercised that. He didn't go to Brentford because he loves Brentford Football Club. He went because of, they were able to lean on their connections and bring a talented player who wouldn't normally have looked to go into Brentford, and it worked out well for both of them. So I hope that he does get a good reception, because he did a lot and played well against us as well. Yeah, he was fantastic for them. Actually, yeah, he was very, very, very lost in the first game against Brighton. I didn't think it was a wise tactical move from the manager. I felt false nine. He was completely lost. United, by the way, had no presence in the middle whatsoever. So whatever they were hoping to achieve by having him in there, it just didn't work either way because you had nothing in the front line and you lost Eriksen from the midfield. So I don't know what you gained from that at all. All that I seem to get from that was that Ten Hag doesn't fancy Rashford as a striker because the more obvious switch would be just to have Eriksen play narrow on the left and have Shaw bomb down the left side of him. It seemed very, very. That would have been the logical thing for me to do, but I'm not a football manager. Erik Ten Hag is, and he went with this split forward thing. We've seen it before, but it didn't work. There was no presence there whatsoever from Eriksen. And I'm not criticising him, by the way. Again, I've got to keep saying that. I'm not criticising Eriksen. He's not a centre forward. So in that position, he was going to be lost. He was always going to be lost. We saw when he moved position in the second half that he starts to have a massive influence on the game. His quality of delivery is so good. We all know that Pogba could deliver a fantastic pass, but he was like on his day that he could do that. Eriksen does that in his sleep if you get him in the right positions. That's how good he is. And it's so refreshing to see someone who consistently does it. It's like he doesn't know how to put a bad ball in, which is a real asset for us to have. It's just wasted when he's playing as a false nine because you're losing a striker and you're losing Eriksen from midfield. So I hope that Ten Hag doesn't go down that route again. Eriksen, for me, I think in this position, playing in some kind of withdrawn from the left position, or maybe even on the right, he's playing this three-man midfield. The anchor, who I'm going to presume is going to be Fred, Fernandes to the left of him, and Eriksen to the right of him. With Sancho, Rashford, possibly Elanga, possibly Garnacho, and Ronaldo. You would presume, considering everything that he said in the press conference, Ronaldo playing. But yeah, I did think it was a mistake. I didn't think it got the best out of him, but I don't think he'll do it again.
Yeah, I think that's something that experiment of playing Eriksen false nine is not going to happen again. Especially when last time Eriksen actually played there was 9 years ago for Spurs. That was the last time he played as a false nine. I always seen that stat a couple of days ago. I thought to myself when I saw the lineup, I thought Bruno was going to be the false nine because I thought he'd be more acclimatized to playing that than Christian Eriksen. Richard is in the comments, says, "Good evening, gents." From sunny Gorton. It seems to be sunny everywhere. The heat wave here in Ireland, and the lads who just on about before the podcast as well. It's absolutely sun is splitting the rocks in the UK as well. So hope everyone is enjoying the weather, and thanks for tuning in during this heat wave, lads. Thanks very much, and thanks lads for coming on. Lee, in terms of Eriksen, kind of going back to the former club, have you ever experienced that yourself? As a professional, going back playing for a former team and kind of, what's that feeling like?
The only time I only ever went to, I was at United from being 9-year-old till 21, so I was at the same club really all my professional career. The only thing I did was go out on loan at Shrewsbury after we won the FA Youth Cup final, and we did end up having behind closed doors games against Shrewsbury, but there was no fans, so it was great to see the lads and go back to the game medal it was called at the time, and play a game against them. But I've never done it personally, but it's got to be some kind of experience, I will aware with what Wayne was saying, that the Brentford fans were, I thought he would have got a great reception when he went back, if I'm being 100% honest with you, but it seems like it's going to be a bit on the ropey side. But even so, it's the way he played for them last season and the way he was in midfield, he did really, really well for him. And they should show a bit of respect for that too. So hopefully he gets, a decent round of applause, and they show him a little bit of respect for what he did last year. Moving on to positional wise, I could not get in my head why we was playing Eriksen as a false nine when that team sheet come out. And like I say, I was actually playing the game myself. As soon as it finished, I went off the pitch, and the first thing I seen was Eriksen was playing a false nine. I thought, where's this come from? Like you mentioned, I would have I wouldn't say prefer, but I would have thought a lot more that he would have played Bruno up there as he's
that was my train of thought as well.
Yeah, and touches on what Wayne said, he's got all the ability in the world to find any pass. He's his vision and his technique on the ball is second to none. He's probably the best we've got on our squad at the moment to do what he does. I think the major problem is the players around him now. You know, we've got that midfield player who can create something out of nothing. You know, that doesn't lose the ball. Bruno can create something out of nothing, but how many times does the ball get cut out or get took off him, or he tries something and it doesn't come off? We've got someone who will do that, but ultimately, the ball will find feet, the ball will find position. We just need the players to perform around him. Unfortunately, like we've mentioned earlier on in the podcast, we still seem to have the same guys starting around him as we did, at the end of last season. Is it going to improve? Is it, unless we get another couple of signings before the end of the window, decent signings to, real good signings, is it going to improve us overall, or do we need more? In my opinion, we need more. I think Ranić summed it up perfectly well. We needed 8, 9, 10 lads, and it sounds like an exaggeration, but for me, I think he hit the nail on the head with the lads who we've had and how long they've been for, and how many chances they've had. Now, if we've still got the same core of lads in there, and not really freshened it up any, we're not going to improve, and we're going to carry on with the same results. I think this next couple of weeks is going to be crucial to how our season goes. If we've been getting one in, I think if we don't, I think if we get top 4, it's the maximum we can aim for.
Yeah, I think top 4 is definitely where we want to be this season. Obviously, look, every year you want to win the league, but like you need to be a realistic fan and say, like, look, that's just not going to be a possibility. I think the roles between Bruno and Eriksen, I think, were wrong last weekend. But I think, look, that's what Ten Hag wanted to go with last week. You put your trust in them, and look, it didn't work out. Look, I think with the false 9 system as well. I think for me, watching the way City do it, and even Liverpool to the extent, you need to have a good midfield to play a false 9. You need to have midfielders who can retain possession and obviously play between the lines and be intricate with the passing. Obviously, McTominay and Fred are not going to give you that. So I think when you play a false 9 with them in the system, you kind of have a deficiency. Because you've no one in the box making them runs when you do have the chance to make that pass. I think we've seen that when Bruno and Eriksen both dropped off to make passes into the box, and they're kind of whipping balls in aimlessly, that there was no presence there. And there was no, like, if I look at the forward runs that Sancho and Rashford were making, I don't think they're making the correct runs for a false 9 to work. Like, if you look at the way...
we haven't got the squad to play a false 9. It's fortunate that we've only got one striker, as we've got Cristiano Ronaldo, because, like I say, Martial's come back, but he's injured again. How many games we're going to get out of him this season? For me, and we've been shouting out for it now for so long, we need a focal point up front. The squad's not good enough. We're not a Man City who, can still win the league without having an out-and-out striker like they did the other season. We need an out-and-out striker, someone who's going to be up there, who's going to hold the ball up, he's going to get into positions. The lads we've got in and around the forward players at the moment, for me, we don't have the squad and we don't have the players who can adapt and who can play that role, because they're just not good enough at the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're not good enough, and I think that's where recruitment is going to have to come into it. I know, look, we'll touch on transfer business as well briefly before the end of the stream as well, because obviously there's the Adrian Rabio links. I want to get your thoughts on that. Obviously, the Frankie de Jong saga. Look, but I'm going to touch on that tonight because it's just, it's kind of getting on my nerves, this transfer saga at the minute. So we won't touch on that today. But I want to touch on Ronaldo. You brought Ronaldo up. I know we're going to talk about like his role in the team going forward. But I want to touch on this because I've literally just seen it on the socials here on the site here in terms of Cristiano Ronaldo. At 37 years of age, he's been nominated for the Ballon d'Or. Considering the season Manchester United have had, like what do you make of Ronaldo being nominated for the Ballon d'Or? And is this a testament to his like attitude as a professional and his overall quality, considering that he scored that many goals in probably the most dysfunctional United team in the last 30 years?
It's an absolute unbelievable achievement, in it. You know what I mean? Like I say, he's the same age as me, and I'm still hurting from last Sunday. You know what I mean? So when you look at it and you put it in the context of what he's achieved over his career and how good he's been for the longevity of what he's done, it's a testament to how he's looked after himself. The professionalism from even back in the day when I used to play with him was second to none. And obviously that's probably just gone better and gone up and up and up throughout the years. You know what I mean? There's no one in world football for me what can rival what he's done over the last 15, 16, 17 years, however long he's done it. And to be nominated now in probably the worst Man United team I've certainly ever come across, and to score the amount of goals he did with the players around him, with the lack of creativity around him, you know, it is testament to what kind of guy he is. I just wish it was 5 years ago that we had him and not at 37-year-old. You know what I mean? There's not much more you can say. Is there? He's a lot of people's idols. He's been the best for a long, long time, and he's still up there with the best. It's just now, it's an hard one for me, and we mentioned it on the last podcast. Do we carry on with him? It's going to look like we're going to have to, innit? You know what I mean? If we could have, in my personal opinion, if we could have brought a young striker in, or not even a young striker, if we would have done what City had done and brought a Haaland in, I'd have moved him on all day long and not thought about it, because, again, put sentiment aside, we need to think of the team and the bigger picture, and how do we get ourselves from a club which the fans are going to be made up if we get European football. We're Man United. We can't have this mindset. But that's what's creeping in. For me, you know, it's second was never good enough. Third was definitely never good enough when I was playing. And now our hopes are clinging on a bit of a cup run, and can we finish in the top four? And that's just showing for me the downward spiral Man United's on. And we can call the lads, you know, and ultimately you've got to put 11 lads on there and they've got to perform. But it is coming from the top, and it's plain and simple for everyone to see. It's coming directly for me from the top. You know, we're still in Brazilians of debt. We're taking dividends out of the club. It's got to be the worst time in Man United's history that we should be taking any kind of dividends out of our club. The money should be getting put straight back in for a rebuild. And when I watched the interview today with Ten Hag, and he said he's on the same page with the guys above, and for me it wasn't convincing. He just said, "Yeah, next question." For me, I weren't convinced that he is on the same.
Yeah, his body language there suggested to me he wasn't happy about the recruitment this summer.
No.
And how could he be?
No, he can't be. Like I say, he's got this Malakia in. Fair enough, young lad, left back. Eriksen, great signing on a free, fantastic. You know what I mean? Martinez, not seen much of him, but Ajax's player of the year last year, so he's got to have a bit about him. You know, it's decent players, but I'm sure they weren't the first three names on his sheet what he wanted when he come to Man United. So, is he getting the support? Probably not. Are we going to, as a club, going to get out the rut what we're in and what we've been in for a long time? And when I say a long time, it's going down and down each season. It's not staying at, can we get into top 2, 3? Like I say, we're not even in, we're in the Europa League this year, and we was lucky to get into the Europa League. Very lucky.
Well, we can actually thank the team that defeated us on Sunday for beating West Ham on the final day of the season.
But we all thought with the season we had that surely even the with the owners what we've got, they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to, they're going to have to logically spend some money and get our club back to where it is. And it doesn't seem like they still want to do it. Like I say, hopefully we're going to get some guys on soon and have a chat with some guys who know a lot more about it than us. And can give us a bit more insight into it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have invited the 1958 to come on and talk to us with regards to the Glazed South movement, because quite frankly, what they're doing at the moment is fantastic in terms of the movement against their current ownership, because the ownership are absolute scum, and it's great to see that there is someone trying to do something about it. So we have invited them on. Hopefully, we can get them on within the next week or so. But with regards to obviously the situation of the club, Lee, I think the way the recruitment has gone this season, obviously Ten Hag can't be happy. I think if you look at the rebuild that needs to be done, I think, Ralph Rangnick saying 10 players, I think that was always going to be unrealistic, but you can see from a stretch what he meant in terms of long-term rebuilding. Rennie Mullenstein spoke to Wayne actually this morning. They were just released on Talk Devil's website. Do check the article out, guys. They spoke about Alejandro Garnacho, and we're obviously talking about rebuilding at the moment. And we're talking about trying to put some vibrant players into the system who will suit Ten Hag's kind of total football style. We've seen him over pre-season, and he's been fantastic. We've seen him with the 23s last season. He was a standout player. If we're looking at the form of Rashford and we're looking at maybe the form of Langa, both our forms have kind of, went Pete Tong in the last kind of couple of months. Do you think Alejandro Garnacho can be that kind of player who can give, I suppose, the team that extra spark of quality, but also kind of, be that X factor? Because it seems like as you mentioned, Rashford is failing to beat players. He's losing the confidence to take them on. Like Brennan Mullenstein quite rightly said that Garnacho can be that spark, and he can be that that player like a young Cristiano coming into the team. Like, do you think that Garnacho can be that player this season?
I certainly hope so, mate. There's two ways of looking at it. We brought Alanga in because it was kind of a needs must last year, and he started off on fire. And we was all saying the same about Alanga. The minute he had a couple of bad games, the fan base absolutely slated him. And it probably, I worry about young lads at United this day and age where, they get built up, and the minute, they show a little bit of vulnerability or a little bit of naivety because, they're not used to playing at such a high level. We build them up so high, and then we knock them off the pedestal so quickly. So there's that way of looking at it. But then the other way is the famous saying, if you're good enough, you're old enough, and certainly what I've seen of him in the under 23s and in pre-season, and the noise being made around him, he certainly looks like he's got the ability. He looks like he's got the confidence. He doesn't look like he's a shy kid who, needs his confidence building up. I think he'll give it 100% when he's on there. The skill level looks amazing. He looks quick. And like I say, it's probably worth giving him a chance, especially with Rashford at the moment. If he doesn't find his form soon, like I said, we've got to be careful of not getting ahead of ourselves. We've had one game, you know what I mean? It's been one game, and Brighton have always been a tough team for any Premier League team to beat. They set up well, done well drilled. The manager's a fantastic. In my eyes, he's a fantastic manager. He gets the best out of his players. They've moved a couple of lads on. And I thought the guy in midfield, was his name Caicedo? I thought he was excellent. Yeah. He's Ecuadorian. He's an excellent player in midfield. So we can't get ahead of ourselves too much and get too disappointed. Look at us last year. We hammered Leeds 5-1 in the first game. We all thought we were going to win the league, and look what happened last season. So we can't just go on, the first game of the season and take it from there. We've got to let the lads bed in. Get a structure. Obviously, it didn't help with Ronaldo only coming back as late as he has, if he is going to stay. Because in pre-season, when I was there, he was building a team ready for the start of the season. And if we've had the disruption there where we've had Martial come back, he's now injured. We've had no Cristiano Ronaldo. We've not really formed any kind of team to get ready for the start. If you understand where I'm coming from with that. So it may take a couple more weeks and a couple of training sessions to come to. I'm hoping and pinning my hopes, and that's all it's going to be. But I do feel like we need more signings, mate. I really do. Don't think with the overall squad of players we've got that we're going to be anywhere near that top four. If this is all we've got, if I'm being honest. Yeah,
I think I do agree with Wayne. The need for patience is spot on. But I think even if we do recruit, let's say Frankie de Jong, Adrian Rabio, and let's say, I know Ten Hag wants a right back and a striker. Let's say we miss out the centre forward, but we do get, let's say, Rabio. Let's say, but if de Jong, if Barcelona don't get out their 700 financial lever, and they have to sell de Jong, then let's say we get de Jong, Rabio, and the fullback in. I still think I think top four is still a tough ask. I think Spurs are that good this season. I think Chelsea, they're still going to recruit. Todd Bowley's playing Football Manager over there at the moment and buying everyone. City and Liverpool at the minute. I think closing the gap this season, I think, is going to be tough, even if Ten Hag does get all of his targets. But even by the looks things with the trajectory, the way summer is going, he probably isn't. So it's going to be a tough ask, for Ten Hag to get them players in the door. Just before we get a quick start 11 and score prediction, from yourself, Lee, I just want to get your just brief thoughts on Adrian Rabio. Obviously, his link has come out this week. John Marta looks like he's just leaving Turin today, looking like we're closing out the deal for him. Obviously, he's not Frankie de Jong. He's not the quality of Frankie de Jong. What are your thoughts on the recruitment of him, considering our midfield kind of crisis at the minute?
It's an hard one because I'll be 100% honest with you. I don't know much about him. I've seen Lou McCurry absolutely turn a new one in him today on MUTV. And when you listen to what Lou McCurry says, I know we've all took it as a bit of a laugh and a joke, but if you listen to the points, it kind of makes sense. Why is no one else in Europe after him? And then the guy at MUTV said, well, Monaco's after him. Who else? You know what I mean? It's for me, no. For me, it's not the type of player we need. I've looked at some stats, and it was against him, Fred and McTominay. And I know stats, you can't really go off stats for well a player does, because if you take the stats from the Brighton game, again, this is one thing I was going to get in, what I got in all last season. We had more possession, kept the ball a lot better than them. We had more shots than them, more shots on target, and we still got beat. So obviously stats don't round up a complete player, but his stats were a lot less than McTominay's and Fred's was last year on more or less everything. And to bring a player in with, like I say, it's getting the stats like getting dribbled, pass, keeping possession, through balls, this, that, and the other, goals. He didn't score a goal last year, did he? Didn't score a goal. Didn't make many, as I'm led to believe. No, not for me, mate. Not for me. Unfortunately, I want to say a bigger profile player, but someone what looks like they've got probably more potential than what we've got. Are we signing someone just for signing's sake because he's been in and around Juve and he's been in and around the French squad? And are we just signing someone because he's a bit of a name, which personally I want to stay away from.
I think Rabio, it's an interesting one. I think if it's Rabio and no one else, I think that's underwhelming. But I think if you get Rabio and let's say Frankie de Jong's not going to happen. Let's say Chelsea get more for whatever reason, Barcelona take out whatever lever and he stays. I think Rabio on his own would be underwhelming. I think stats can be misleading at times.
Yeah, I get that. I get that with his stats. But like I say, when you're putting up, we're absolutely hammering it home that we need to replace McTominay and Fred, and then his stats are lower than them. It's like, wow, okay, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think if the fact we play midfield too, if we get like a Sangari or Neves in beside him, our midfield is much more compact. I
was just gonna say, I think it comes down to, do we want a Rabio, or for me, 120%, I'd rather sign Ruben Neves. Do you know what I mean? Which probably would have been, if they would have pursued that at the beginning of the transfer, he'd probably be playing in our midfield tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It just begs belief for me why we've not gone for someone who's actually proven in the Premier League. We know he can do it. We know what he brings to the table. Apart from being someone who's never played Premier League football before, he doesn't look well. He may fit in, he may not. But it's a bit of an unknown for me. Why someone who's proven?
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's where, I think with Rabio coming in, I think the question marks are going to be there. I just think if we are to get him, it can't be just him alone. We have to get someone in beside him because he's decent on the ball. He is strong. He is good. But is he single-handedly going to turn around our midfield? No, he's not. I think if you get him and get Sangari, Neves, or even Frankie de Jong, let's say, you've de Jong and Rabio in the two and then Bruno in front of him, all of a sudden that midfield has balance and that midfield can keep the ball, can keep it ticking. But yeah, if let's say we play Rabio and Fred or Rabio and McTominay, it's not going to happen. And
when it come out the other day, that was Rabio and Arnautovic, all I could do was shake my head and think, what are we doing? That was my first, the way I felt. My first opinion on it is, what the hell are we doing? We've gone from looking at what we were looking at the beginning of the season to then signing these two. For me, it was no good for me.
You went looking at like one of the best players in the world in Frankie de Jong, and then you're looking at Rabio and Arnautovic. Now, thankfully, Arnautovic isn't going to be isn't going to be signing for us. Thank God. Obviously, he had a lot of controversy where he had racism and sexism controversies with him. So I'm glad the fan base did push the club not to sign him. I'm glad he didn't sign. And not only that, his ability as well. He's not good enough to play for United anyway. But the things that were attached to him, I didn't want a player of that character playing for our football club. But Lee, we will touch on starting 11 and scoring predictions. Now, I will be keeping a table this week, just for anyone who's watching this podcast for the first particular time. I have a league table for me, Lee, and Phil's score predictions for the season. Now, last season, Phil trounced me and Lee. Now, luckily, me and Lee are still on level with Phil because we all predicted United win last week and we got bet. So we're all still 0-0 at the minute. So we'll get score predictions at the end of the podcast, and we'll get Phil's starting 11 as well from him and his score prediction in our group chat. We will post it for you on socials. But Lee, first of all, give me your 11 on the back of the Brighton game last weekend, and give me the 11 you think that'll beat Brentford tomorrow.
I'll give you two. I'll give you my 11 what I would start, but don't take that as my 11 because I would, and I'll give you the 11 what I think 10 I will start just for the league, basically. So my 11 would be De Gea in the nets. I'd put the young lad in Malachi at left back. Is Baye fit?
Boy?
Yeah, is he fit?
Yeah.
I never know whether he's fit or not, but if he was fit, I'd put Baye in with rather Maguire or Varane. I'd put Dalot at right back. I'd put a midfield three of Bruno, Eriksen and Martinez. And up front, I'd go with centre forward of Ronaldo, right, Sanchez, Garnacho on the left. That's what I would go with personally. To shake the team up a little bit, you know, to have a little bit, a look at something a little bit different. I think Baye, I've never hid the fact. I think that if he gets a run of games and he can be coached properly, I think, and stay injury free, could be a fantastic centre back. We're crying out for a defensive midfield player. Let's have a look at this Martinez there. I believe he's played there a few times and played well there. That's what I would do personally. Beginning of the season, I'd have a look at it, but I don't think he'll go with that. I think he'll go with the game in nets. I think he'll go with Luke Shaw at left back, Martinez, Maguire, and Dalot. I think I'll go with Fred as the older midfield player, with Fernandes on the left of midfield and Eriksen on the right. And I think I'll go with Sanchez up top on the right, Rashford up left, and Ronaldo up front.
Interesting. So that Lee has given us two lineups. You guys in the comments who are watching, do give us your lineups as well. And we will discuss them in the comments here as well. For me, I'm going to give what I would go with. Now, I know Ten Hag won't go with this, but I'm going to give what I would go with. Just quite simply, just based off, I think, balance and trying to help the team progress. I would personally go with, I have to say De Gea in nets because we've no one else. Until we get a keeper as soon as we get a keeper who can sweep and pass the ball and come out for corners, I'd be dropping him straight away. I'm going to be brutally honest about that, but that's another conversation for another day. By default, Diogo Dalot has to get into the team because Wan-Bissaka, Ten Hag is isolating him, and Ethan Laird's gone on load to QPR. So Dalot was there. I'd go Harry Maguire and Rafael Varane at centre half. I'd go Malacia left back. I'd go Martinez and Eriksen in midfield, with Bruno in front of him. I'd have Eriksen playing in the 8, and Bruno 10. I'd go Sancho. I'd go Ronaldo and Rashford on the left. Now, you could go Garnacho instead of Rashford as well. With the 5 subs, I do see Garnacho getting a game tomorrow at some stage in the day, because he is a fantastic footballer, and it'd be great to see him get a game, because I think, especially the way Brentford play, like if Brentford do play a high line, I think Garnacho could be a player to exploit that with his pace, but also his ability to dribble. Now, I think Martinez is probably going to play centre half, and you'll see Fred and Eriksen, I think, in midfield tomorrow. I do think Scott McTominay is going to be dropped tomorrow. I really do. Just considering the way, like, the reports coming out saying this week that he's not happy with Fred and McTominay, and look, McTominay's performance the other day was absolutely abysmal, so I don't see how he can get back into the team this weekend. But we shall see. But Lee, I will need to get your score prediction. Now, we all predicted a Man United win last week. We all had egg in our faces last Sunday at 4:00. Are you going to predict a Man United win this week?
Very, very, very reluctantly, yeah. I don't think none of us had ever gone for United defeat, no matter who we've played. I don't want to start doing it now, because we should not be getting beat off Brentford. We should not. I repeat it, we should not be getting beat off Brentford. So I'm going to go with a hopeful 2-0.
A hopeful 2-0 and a clean sheet. That is positivity. I love to see. I'm gonna go 2-1. I know I went 3-1 last week in the comments last week, but I'm gonna go 2-1. I do think Brentford are gonna score first tomorrow. I think we're gonna be shitting ourselves again. Sorry, Wayne. We will be crapping their pants next week. Sorry, not next week, tomorrow. If Brentford do get the first goal, but I do see Ronaldo pulling it out for us tomorrow because of all the talk and all the headlines of what's gone on. I do see Ronaldo getting a brace tomorrow, and we'll see Man United get 3 points, but it's not going to be looking good going into Liverpool. But yeah, look, there's our score prediction, guys, in the comments, or if you're watching on the replay, or if you're watching on Facebook or any of our audio platforms as well, do give your feedback on your team predictions and score predictions. And don't forget to check out Mark's post-match podcast tomorrow, right after the game, and you'll be sure to catch that as well. And do catch our Twitter page as well, Talk to Devils Twitter page. We do post news up there, and we also have the podcasts and everything else up there as well, the news. And don't forget to check out Wayne's interview with Rennie Mullenstein as well. That's on our website, talkdevils.co.uk. But thanks very much, everyone, for tuning in. Hope you all have a good weekend. Enjoy the weather while it's there. And let's hope Man United get the 3 points tomorrow. We're all happy this weekend. But until then, guys, we'll see you next week.